G'day guys, and welcome to our new Off-Grid series. So this is a separate series to our normal travel videos. This one is all about living off-grid. This is part one. This is advantages, disadvantages, who's it for, and the number one thing that's going to stop you from being off-grid, which is running out of water. So this is all about all our water saving tips. It's how to find water when you're traveling, how to store water, and how to make the most out of it.
So over the coming months, we're going to be covering off a whole range of topics about traveling off-grid and living off-grid for long-term travel, not just for caravanners like us, but for any form of travel, whether you're in a tent, a rooftop, a camper trailer. It doesn't really matter. Even if you want to build an off-grid cabin or go and live off-grid on a boat or something like that, the concepts all apply. So it's just a whole range of topics that we've learned over the last couple of years of traveling off-grid, and we can't wait to share all that with you. There's a few new faces on our channel, and we would like to welcome you to our channel. If you haven't been watching us for very long, welcome. We're really glad to have you here. If this is the first time you've seen us, hit that subscribe button, join the channel, and we've got a heap of great content coming out this year, not just in this off-grid series, but a heap of travel content as well. We're in Tasmania at the moment. Heaps of videos on Tasmania coming out. Can't wait to show you that. We've been having a fantastic time down here. And if you would like to support us and our selected charities, we donate 10% of all the revenue from this channel to charity. And all you need to do that is simply watch the ads. That really helps us out, and it really helps out the channel as well as those charities that we like to support. So it's a small thing that you can do that does really make a big difference. So thank you to all of you that do that. I think that's about it. Make sure you stick around to the end of this video because we've got a big giveaway coming up.
Yeah, that's right. So there's a $100 giveaway at the end of the episode from our mates at Everything Caravan and Camping. So stick around.
All right, guys, let's dive into it.
This phrase of off-grid, it's really quite this buzzword at the moment, and it means different things to different people, and there's no real one definition for off-grid. But for us, we're sort of defining it as being self-sufficient for as long as you possibly can.
Yeah, so I think off-grid originally, like the term originally was all about being unplugged from the grid, so not connected to power. So it really has often been referred to as just having a big off-grid power system, so you're self-sufficient for power. But we really think the term's sort of becoming more broadly now to encompass all aspects of being self-sufficient. And for us, it's about, the scope of this series is more going to be about long-term travel. Yeah. So not just, I mean, obviously, if you go for a weekend camping in your swag with an esky by the fire, bloody perfect in our opinion. Oh. And obviously that's off-grid. I mean, you're self-sufficient for a period of time. But generally, when we're talking about off-grid, or at least in terms of this series, it's going to be for longer term. So it's more than just a weekend camping. But that being said, a lot of what we're going to talk about, you can incorporate into your setup or your plans, no matter how long you're going for. And it's not just for camping. It's gonna, I don't know if you guys want to build an off-grid cabin one day, go sailing on a boat around the world. Yes. It's all the same sort of concept. So it's more conceptual that we're going to be talking about. It's not about recommending specific products to you or trying to sell you anything. It's really just about concepts that you can adapt and bring into your setup and your lifestyle to suit you.
To suit exactly how you want to travel. Because something that we've learned is that no two travelers travel the same way, in the same way that two people who live in houses don't live in the house the same way.
Yeah, 100%. So,
yeah, it's really just about encompassing how you want to travel and making sure that you've got everything you need to travel that way.
Yep. The first thing we thought we'd cover is what are the advantages to having an off-grid system and what are the disadvantages to having a big off-grid system. So first we'll cover the advantages. And I think by far the one that people most think of, and we think is probably one of the biggest advantages, is your savings on accommodation costs as you travel. So to give you some idea, we've done the stats up onto our first 585 days on the road, and of those we spent 72 days plugged in or to either power or water, and the remainder, so over 500 days, completely off-grid, completely disconnected. And that just allows us to camp in a lot of free camps and low-cost camps, which significantly reduces that accommodation cost. So what was our total accommodation spend for that first 585 days?
It was $6,100 and something.
Yeah, so just over $6,000.
Yeah, which is amazing. Like
almost 2 years of travel.
Sure beats paying $500 a week to live in Canberra. Another great advantage to having an off-grid setup is travel flexibility. It means that you can just make decisions as they suit you. It means you don't have to plan anywhere near as much in advance because you're self-sufficient. It means that if you get somewhere and you love it, you can stay as long as you want.
Yeah, because we tend to find that the powered sites particularly are the most limited resource, and they're the things that book out the earliest. So they're the ones that people, I guess, who need to be connected to services need to book in advance a lot more than if you've got an off-grid system. You don't necessarily need to do that as much. And then the next thing that books out is the unpowered caravan sites, because obviously they've still got water and amenities and things like that. And then the ones that really never book out is the free camps and national parks. In some areas do. You will sometimes have to do some planning there, but in general, a lot less planning required. You can get away with booking a lot less if you've got the system to allow you to be self-sufficient for longer. Another big advantage of having a good off-grid system and being self-sufficient is that you get to spend longer in the best places around the country. We tend to find all of our favourite spots around the country are those off-grid campsites, away from it all, hopefully to yourself, but either way, the ones on the beaches, the ones in the desert, the national park campgrounds, the free camps, the station stays, all of those farm stays, all that sort of stuff, they're always our highlights, and they're generally off-grid ones. So if you've got a good off-grid system and you're self-sufficient for a while,
means you get to stay there longer. Another thing that I think is often overlooked is that we tend to find so many more like-minded people in those campgrounds, and some of our best friendships have come from those really, really hard to get to places, I think, that most people don't go. So when you get into those campgrounds, there's often a lot of like-minded people there. So I just think too, the connections that you find on the road are by far one of the best experiences you can have traveling. And we've just met so many like-minded people doing it. I feel like we've just gained hundreds of new friends that we can go and visit anywhere across the country now. So yeah, it's a really nice thing to have that sense of community and to have those people that you just get along. You pull into a campsite and you instantly hit it off. So it's great.
Something else that we find, which I think is really interesting, and it's probably something that a lot of people don't consider, is when you set yourself up for off-grid and self-sufficient travel, it's actually far less stressful. There's a lot to think about when you're traveling long-term or full-time to keep up to date with, whoa, there goes the hat, there's the wind. There's a lot to keep in mind when you're traveling full-time or long-term when it comes to fuel and mechanical things, keeping enough food, water. So to add to that, dump points is another one. So to add to that, having to be plugged in more often to get power, to recharge, to have to get water more often, to have to get food more often, all those things adds an extra layer of complexity and, in my opinion, more stress to your travels. So as an example, when we were planning to travel the Gibb River Road in 2021, there's a lot to think about along there. It's an anxiety sort of, you can be a little bit nervous, an anxiety-inducing experience sometimes to plan a big off-road trip like that, and to have just less things to worry about, as far as we knew as long as we got one water fill along the way, we'd be fine, and that we didn't need to book anything because we were happy to camp wherever we could find a spot. We didn't need a powered site, we didn't need water connection, anything like that. It just makes it, I think, far less stressful. So I think that's something that people don't really think about, but is definitely a big benefit we find with traveling with a good off-grid setup. So I guess the last benefit or advantage to having an off-grid system, which is going to lead into the disadvantages, is the ongoing cost is quite low. Once you've set yourself up, and we're going to get into the disadvantage in a minute, which is the cost to set it up, but yeah, is the ongoing cost is much lower. Not just the accommodation, like we said, but we can be a bit more selective about where we buy food. We can be a bit more picky about where we get water. All these sort of things, it just allows us to be a little bit more selective, and it does, I think, reduce your overall travel costs significantly once you've outlaid the money to set it up. So the biggest one most people would think of is your electrical system is obviously going to cost a lot more to get started. Every water tank you add adds money. Refrigeration, you might need bigger refrigeration or more refrigeration. All these sorts of things that are going to extend that period of self-sufficiency are going to add some cost to your initial setup. Probably the only other disadvantage we can really come up with is the weight that it adds to your setup as well. Generally, all those things, as we said, add weight. To try and carry enough water adds weight, so that means there's less of other things that you can probably carry and stay within your weight limits. Bigger battery systems, way more. Carrying more food, it weighs more. Carrying more fuel, it weighs more. So everything that you need to extend that self-sufficiency period is going to add weight to your system. So they're probably the two biggest downsides, but they're both, obviously, you can overcome them both, but they are things to keep in mind.
Absolutely. If you want to know more about weights, watch our weight video. I'll leave the link down below.
If you've got any questions about anything that we're going to cover or as we go through the series, the best thing to do is leave us a comment below. If it's a quick and easy one, we'll get back to you. But something else that we're doing is we've teamed up with Everything Caravanning and Camping for this series, and we're going to be doing a giveaway in every single one of these videos. So there's one coming up very shortly. We'll give you the details of that soon. But the other part of that we're going to be doing is some live Q&A sessions, live question and answer through the Everything Caravanning and Camping Facebook group.
Yes, it's a massive group, and we're going to be announcing on our socials and their socials when those are on. So make sure you follow along on socials and jump on, we'll say hi and answer your questions for you.
Okay, so we've covered off the advantages and the disadvantages to having an off-grid system, but what is the number one thing that is going to limit your time off-grid? By far, it is water is the number one thing that is going to limit your off-grid stay. Talk to any long-term traveller and that is the answer that you will get. So what we want to cover off is how to get water, how we find it, how to store water, and then, of course, how to minimise your water usage to extend your stay as much as possible.
What you'll find is that the WikiCamps app is by far the easiest and most up-to-date way to find points of water. Go into the filters section at the top, scroll down and you'll see water facilities, and we've got it currently turned off on hide. Turn that on, hit apply, and now up will come sources of water. So we can see that up here, there's a water point just there. I always recommend checking the reviews because you'll find that people will leave great information about who that water will suit most. So whether it's accessible to what style of camper. So whether it's vans, camper vans, buses, you name it. Or if it's just a park, you fill your jerry cans. People will leave that information in there for you. So jump on that, find your water points, and then you calculate your distance between those water points basically, and you can work out where you can get water and where you can next get water, because that's another thing to consider is where you can get it now, but how long does that water need to last you till?
Depending on the distances between those water points that we find on WikiCamps, we decide roughly how much water we need. We don't always fill up all of our water storage in one go because it just means we're carrying around extra weight that's unnecessary. We always have a little bit of reserve, obviously, because often plans change and we like to be able to remain flexible. So we always like to have a little bit extra than what we need. But after a few years on the road, we've sort of worked out we use roughly 30 litres a day. So that might give you some idea of how much water you might use, but it's a good idea to just monitor your water usage as you get started and figure out how much water you use on average, and then it allows you to plan ahead. So apart from WikiCamps, obviously, which gives you those water taps and water fill points, you've got other options around the country, like right behind me now, we're parked up at this beautiful little freshwater river. The ability to pump out of a river or a creek to fill your water tanks or just to be able to use your washing machine or something like that will give you a whole extra level of self-sufficiency when it comes to being off-grid. Being able to pump out of a river or another water source like that, even bore water, there are systems you can get that allow you to use a bore water supply and filter it and make that water suitable for drinking. When you're camped up by the ocean, you can use obviously salt water to do your dishes and things like that. Anything you can get an extra water source is going to extend your stay off-grid dramatically because, as I said, it's by far the thing that's going to cut short your off-grid stay.
Okay, so now you've figured out where you're going to get your water. Now you need to work out how you're going to store as much of it as you can within your weight limits. A range of options that we've seen on the road include jerry cans, water bladders. You can get soft and hard ones that go in your car or in your van. You can get water tanks for your van as well, obviously. This is the number one thing that's going to send you back to civilization first. So consider how much you have got the weight capacity to store, and our advice would be to just go with as much as you can within your weight limits.
So something to consider here is if you've got a caravan or a camper trailer set up like ours, then often you're going to want to be able to leave your caravan or camper set up in your perfect location like we are at the moment, and then head off into town or wherever it is that you may be able to get access to a water supply. So having some sort of portable water storage in your vehicle really adds an extra level of flexibility when it comes to getting water. So we use two 20-litre jerry cans that allows us to go into town, but we are considering upgrading that and getting a little bit more because it would be nice to be able to get, I say, up to 100 litres on a day trip or something like that to go and fill up that water and extend our stay off grid. Just to give you an idea of our setup as well, ours consists of 3 95-litre freshwater tanks under the van, and that is about as much as we can carry and stay within our weight limits. When we build our new Land Cruiser later this year, we are hoping to increase our payload, which will allow us to carry even more fresh water to extend our stay. It's by far our biggest consideration is how we can get more water and stay off grid for longer. So it's something definitely to spend a bit of time considering is the best way for your setup to get as much water and as much flexible water storage as you possibly can. Something else you're going to have to consider as well, obviously, when you're filling up your water tanks is the quality of the water. Something that we do to, I guess, minimize the risk of getting any nasties in our water is running it through an inline filter as we fill our tanks. And then we also have a filter in the van. So as the water pumps out of those tanks and comes out the tap, it gets filtered again. Touch wood, we've never had an experience of bad water, but it is something to consider is having some sort of water filtration system to be able to minimize the chance of getting any bugs. There are options out there as well to be able to filter bore water. You can even filter salt water into fresh drinking water as well, depending on what level you want to go to. And we're definitely considering doing something similar to that for our next setup. It may also be worth considering whether you isolate a drinking water source. We certainly know that there are some setups that do this where they can isolate an individual tank or an individual water supply for drinking water only, which then allows you to be a little bit less careful about how you fill up. So you can pump out of creeks and things like that to be able to use it for showering or for dishes and things and different things like that, depending on the water availability where you are. Alrighty, so what are some of our water conservation tips? When we're staying on the beach, we often keep some salt water in a bucket to wash the kids' feet off before they go into the van. Things like that that are going to save, keeps the van cleaner for a start, but it also saves us using a lot of fresh water for that sort of thing. There's nothing wrong with the kids having a little wash in the salt water and then we just can rinse them off with fresh water. It really minimises the amount we use.
So another way we conserve water when we're traveling, if we need to, is instead of filling the sink up with hot water for dishes, I heat the water in the Thermomix jug and either use the Thermomix jug or the thermoserver, which is like an insulated bowl basically to do the dishes in. So it's about 1.5 litres of water instead of using maybe say 4 or 5 to do a shallow sink wash. Water in there is obviously not very dirty. I've just washed a few things, but that water in the bowl will stay good and hot for another 3 or 4 hours. So I'll be able to use it again for lunch dishes and it'll work fine. So hot tips.
The same concept works. If you've got a good insulated bottle or an old thermos or anything like that, same concept. When you've got hot water, put it in the thermos and then save it. It saves not only water but saves power and gas or whatever it is that you use to heat your water as well. When we're showering, we always make sure we have a bit of a navy shower when we're conserving water, which means turning the water on, turning the water on and getting wet, and then turning the water off again, soaping up, and then just turning the water on to rinse off again. You can really get away with using very little water, having a shower, doing it this way. You'll find you don't always need to be that conservative with water, and there are times when you can enjoy a nice long shower, but it is definitely worth getting into the habit and learning how to conserve water when you do need to.
So another hot tip for the shower is you can get 2-in-1 shampoo conditioner. That is just going to minimise your shower time as well. My longest showers are when I'm washing my hair, so a 2-in-1 conditioner, there's heaps of them on the market. You can get super good quality ones and super cheap ones from the supermarket. Grab yourself one of those. And my other hot tip for that is brush your hair before you wash it, because then all the hair doesn't go down the drain.
A couple of other things you might want to consider with your setup when you're looking at how to conserve water is what sort of toilet you have. Our composting toilet has no flush, so it doesn't use any water at all. So that certainly helps to cut down on the amount of water usage. There are some other big advantages to the compost as well, which we'll go through in another video when we talk about waste and our composting toilet. We're going to go into a lot more detail on that. But just on the water side of things, it is really worth considering how much less water you might use using a composting toilet. Another big consideration is whether or not to install a washing machine. It's a bit of a luxury item for sure. We've certainly done without one, but it's something that we're considering implementing into our next setup when we are able to have a little bit more payload to carry more water, because they are extremely water hungry. So if you're not going to use it a lot because you don't have the water, it may be worth considering omitting it from your setup, because it is a lot of weight to carry around if you find you're not using it. Laundry is not something that's hard to find. Laundry facilities, obviously every caravan park has laundry facilities, but we also find a lot of the station stays have laundry facilities, and then most of your towns have some sort of laundromat in the town as well. So we've never really had any trouble finding a laundromat facility. So if you do want to omit a washing machine from your setup, it's certainly something worth considering to not only save water, but to save on that weight as well, which is something we're all keeping a very close eye on. Another thing we did get asked about when we were asking questions about this off-grid series from you guys was, how long is the longest hose you need? That's a really tricky one. Obviously, the longer the hose you've got, the better for getting access to water fill points. What we carry is a 15 metre and a 10 metre hose, and we've never really found anywhere that we've needed a longer hose than that to get to any points. But I like having the two. It just gives us a little bit of flexibility. Sometimes the longest hose we need is actually when we're in a caravan park and the water point is a lot further away than you realise. So having a long lead and a long hose is handy for those situations. But yeah, in general, those two hoses do the trick. Alrighty guys, I hope that gives you some idea of how to find water, how to store your water, and how to save water. Saving water is definitely the biggest one with that. It really does make a big difference to how long you can stay self-sufficient and remain off-grid for.
Absolutely, and don't underestimate those little things that can make a big difference, like washing your feet before you go inside with a bucket of salt water or creek water. Only filling, like this cup, I filled it up to here before, and then poured it into the saucepan to boil it, so I knew exactly how much I wanted and wasn't wasting, you know, even 100 or 200 mils of water and guesstimating what I need.
It all adds up for sure.
Filling the hand basin with water for the kids to wash their hands like constantly, because man, they're cold.
They're always in the grub.
They're always filthy, and they are by far the biggest offenders. And yeah, just keeping on top of being mindful of what you're using and how you're using it, and measuring what you use on a daily basis, and having that in mind when you are working out how long you need to stay off grid.
So even though some of these things might sound a bit of a hassle, it's surprising how quickly they just become habit and you don't even really think about it. And it's really awesome to see how much the kids are conscious of how much water they're using, and these water saving measures, they just become part of your everyday life. They're really not that much hassle at all, and it really does make you appreciate a long shower when you do get the opportunity to have one. If we know we're getting water the next day, we have a nice long shower, really enjoy it. So that's really good. So just to touch on a few things there that I think a few people really wanted to know is, how much water do we use? We generally allocate a 95 litre tank is 3 days worth of water. So our 3 tanks gives us about 9 to 10 days off grid. When we really need to stretch it, we can get that out to about 14 days is about the maximum we can go.
If we're being super frugal.
If we're not topping up on water anywhere or anything like that, 14 days is our absolute maximum. But again, it depends how much you're swimming and things like that, how much your hygiene tolerances might be different to us. If we're swimming frequently, we're happy to only shower every couple of days. So that makes a massive difference. Showers will be, unless you've got a washing machine, showers will be by far your biggest water consumer. Alright, so before we wrap up, we thought we'd better let you know how you can get this $100 voucher from Everything Caravan and Camping, so you can go and grab yourself something that's going to help you get off grid and travel a bit more, or just a discount on something that you might have had your eye on. We wanted to keep this competition as simple as possible. We didn't want to make it about tagging 27 mates and writing 153 words about your favourite trip or anything like that. Really, really simple. So this one it's an exclusive giveaway for our subscribers. So if you're not a subscriber already, make sure you click that subscribe button and join us.
The little red one that says subscribe.
The right red one, yeah, subscribe. It's all there.
Yeah.
All you have to do is head over and sign up for the Everything Caravan and Camping newsletter. I'll leave a link to that below in the description, so you can just click on that, sign up to the newsletter, come back to this video and just leave us a comment below and let us know you've done that. And it's simple as that. We're just
leave us a comment, any comment,
anything you like, and we'll pick someone at random to send out the voucher to. So we can't wait to do that. There's going to be a giveaway in every single one of these off-grid videos that we're doing throughout the year. So make sure you stick around, follow along, and hopefully we can help you guys get off-grid. Hope you've enjoyed this one. I hope you're looking forward to everything we've got coming up, because we're super excited.
All right, the next off-grid episode is going to be
electrical.
Deep diving. Yeah,
everything I've learned about 12 volt and everything that I know about off-grid systems, we're going to be covering all that off. I don't even know if I'm going to be able to, it might end up being a 2-part video, that one, because there's a lot to cover, but I'm going to be covering the basics all the way from understanding what all the different terminology means through to what the different components of an electrical system are, how you can spec an electrical system that suits your needs, not just what a salesman tells you need or thinks you need, all the things you need to consider, but making sure that you understand how to calculate what your electrical needs are going to be, and then helping you to specify a system that's going to suit those needs, because it's not just about having the biggest, baddest system out there, because you end up just spending a lot of money for no reason that you may not use it.
It's going to be an epic episode.
I've got a lot of planning to do, so I'm going to go and get that one sorted. Next week, stick around. As we said, we're going to be sharing more of our West Coast Tassie adventure. We did an unreal scenic drive yesterday that we can't wait to share with you. Spoiler alert, I think it's potentially the best touring drive we've ever done in Australia. That's a big call, but it was up there for us.
Still, like, just visualizing it. It's just in my mind still as just mind-blowing of what you can see in the time that we were on that drive.
A one-day drive.
A one-day drive
Yeah.
through the western remote wilderness of Tasmania. You have to see it.
And you can take your caravan. We took the caravan along on that one too. No. And you don't even really need an off-road caravan for that one. A semi-off-road or something like that if you take your time. It is unsealed, but we'll share more about that next week. And the rest of what we get up into West Tassie, Cradle Mountain, everything coming up in that episode. Can't wait to show you that.
Yeah, subscribe.
Make sure you subscribe. Good luck in the competition. We can't wait to announce that. That's going to be in next week's video. But until then, we'll see you next Sunday.
See you next Sunday, guys.